Hopefully, this won't take too long. Odds are you would have no reason to object to this sentence, and that would be thanks to your common sense. But people with strong opinions about usage often abandon common sense, choosing instead to overthink things and invent rules that create problems where none actually exist. And the war on hopefully is a classic example of the overeager outlawing a word that isn't actually harming anyone. See, stuffy commentators have decided that you shouldn't say a sentence like, hopefully the turtles will stop running away, if you want the turtles to stop running. That's because, according to them, hopefully is an adverb that must only modify the main verb of a sentence. So, the sentence, hopefully the turtles will stop running away, must obviously only mean that the turtles will stop running away, and that they'll do so in a hopeful manner. Really though, this is a classic case of someone looking at language and enforcing a kind of strict logic on it that just doesn't exist in the minds of anyone who uses it. I struggle to believe that anyone would genuinely believe that those running turtles were full of hope. It's far more likely that any reader would correctly assume that the writer of the sentence was full of hope. But the stern and misguided will point to all the adverbs they can think of, cautiously, angrily, hastily, viciously, and then say that all these adverbs modify verbs. If you write, viciously they tore into the lasagna, it means they ate lasagna in a vicious way. So where they insist that hopefully they tore into the lasagna is a sentence that describes their supper-time attitude, and not the wishes of a proud chef, the only correct option for that proud chef is to say, it is to be hoped that they tore into the lasagna. Ah yes, much better, and much more convincingly human. Nobody would ever suspect you of being a robot. So we end up with a rule like the one that got taught to me in school. Never say hopefully, always say it is to be hoped that instead. Because starting a sentence with hopefully doesn't actually mean what everyone in the world thinks it means, and of course you'd hate to be misunderstood. But the rule against hopefully ignores a whole list of other words that work in exactly the same way. If you said, unfortunately, she spilled motor oil on the pancakes, nobody would suppose that she did so in an unfortunate manner. They would all understand that the event itself was unfortunate. If you said, thankfully, Sven returned the eggs, nobody would suppose that Sven gave back the eggs in a spirit of gratitude. They would all understand that the speaker was grateful for the eggs' return. And if you said mercifully the show ended on time, nobody would think that the cast and crew were full of mercy. They would understand that the show was terrible. And strangely, I've never heard anyone say that you should start sentences with nonsense phrases like, it is to be considered unfortunate that, one should give thanks for the fact that, or it is to be considered as though it were an act of mercy that. But somehow, the people who really think they know what's up insist that it is to be hoped that is the only correct way to express oneself. The rule was created in the spirit of consistency, but it creates a greater inconsistency because it treats hopefully differently from a bunch of adverbs that behave the same way. There's nothing consistent about singling out one word. I think what's really happened here is that somewhere in history someone decided to understand the word adverb a little too literally and to assume that adverbs can only modify verbs. In the sentence, he danced absurdly, the adverb modifies the verb and tells you how he danced, in an absurd manner. So, because adverbs most famously modify verbs, that must be all they can do, right? Well, in the sentence, her dress is absurdly yellow, the same adverb is modifying an adjective, so it's not correct to say that they can only modify verbs. And if you said he danced very absurdly, very is also an adverb modifying the adverb absurdly. Adverbs can modify each other. In fact, as you may remember from our grammar series, the only things adverbs don't modify are nouns. That's a job reserved for adjectives. Beyond that, though, adverbs are like all-purpose modifiers. They can even modify entire clauses or sentences. And that, dear friends, is what's going on with a sentence like, hopefully you brought some ice cream. That adverb is not modifying the verb brought, it's modifying the entire sentence in order to give us insight into the speaker's attitude. Used in this way, hopefully stands with other words like certainly, unfortunately, ideally, and presumably in a group known as sentence adverbs, words that modify entire sentences in particular ways. So if anyone ever gives you grief for the way you use hopefully, it would be perfectly okay to inform them that you're using it as a sentence adverb, that there's a whole bunch of other sentence adverbs, and that there's nothing wrong with what you've done. And hopefully they'll get the message and let go of their unhelpful made-up rules.